All right. Hello, students, and welcome to class. I am Dr. Singh, and today I'm going to give you a lecture on the intersections of healing and magic, witchcraft, and voodoo. This is based largely on the readings we have for our next upcoming modules. And all right, let's get started. All right. So we've been reading this semester about different ways of understanding the body, different ways of understanding the etiology or origins of diseases. And we're going to look this week at some modules that are going to get us into the worlds of magic and witchcraft. And how does magic and witchcraft for some traditional societies, both modern and ancient, relate to disease and illness, both as causes of disease and illness and as providing methods for healing, for rejuvenating the body, for warding off sickness and disease and death. All right, so we're going to keep calm. So we stay calm. Well, if everybody's calm, we're going to now say our magic word. And well, it's kind of interesting. Speaking and words are a very important part of magic. So our magic word, which we're going to say out loud. So when you see the magic word, you're going to say it. And our magic word for today is magic. Go and say magic out loud. Sorry, I can't quite hear you, but it's okay. We'll move on. So magic. What I would encourage you to do right now is maybe think a little bit about that term. Think about your associations. Think about any concepts that come to mind. All right. So these are the questions. I would encourage you to maybe pause and think and maybe write out some answers. What comes to mind when you hear the word magic? And then be kind of interesting. See if you can kind of come up with your own definition of magic. All right. So on the topic of magic, kind of going back, I think to what kind of where I don't want to say I was growing up. I can't remember how old I was when this came out, but Harry Potter. Harry Potter is something associated with magic that we all hear about, and occasionally there's even some controversies, like there have been book bans related to Harry Potter. So Harry Potter does magic. Well, what is magic? Oh, this is interesting here. So magic is something that many of us are interested in. So J.K. Rowling's net worth, who's the author, I think actually this this is kind of dated. I think the worth is more, but anyway, so the Harry Potter franchise in 2016 was worth $25 billion. And well, we can ask, why does Harry Potter made so much money? Maybe this allure of practicing magic and going to school to study magic. Well, we're going to do that now. Well, I'm not going to teach you how to do magic, although you might get some ideas and inspirations, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm going to teach you where this idea comes from, which is kind of tricky. Or at least I'm going to show you some very common theories about what magic is and maybe where magic came from using a famous author named James Frazier. Okay. James Frazier, well, he was very interested in figuring out what exactly magic is, how does it relate to religion, how does it relate to science, and as he's doing that, he wrote a multi-volume series called The Golden Bough, which is all about this idea of magic. Where does it come from? In that, he asks a chicken or egg question. So, which came first, the chicken or egg? Well, he doesn't ask that question. I'm using this kind of as a metaphor for the big picture question he's asking. And the big picture question he's asking is, well, which came first, magic or religion? In the Golden Bough, Fraser argued that, well, this is kind of his not just the Golden Bough, his general theories of everything, is that religion, just like illness, just like anything else, it's part of the natural world. He believes that magic is the foundation of human civilization, in that magic is the first thing that our ancestors used to figure out the world. The first thing that our ancestors used to figure out how you get sick or how to treat illnesses. And over time, magic, he argues, will evolve into religion, where magic becomes more organized. It starts to have more of a structure to it. That's when it becomes we get religion. Then over time, whereas people look to magic or religion to understand illness, disease, suffering, from magic to religion, eventually we would get science. So he views magic as the foundation, trying to understand how things are connected. Why do disasters happen? Is there a way of controlling the natural world? Fraser argues that was the first thing our ancestors were worried about, and that eventually turns into an organized system of religion. But then over time, our ancestors became more refined and we get science. This is Fraser's theory. Okay. The magician also was the first king, according to Fraser. And we're going to see this a little bit in one of our discussion boards about the Azande tribe, who I'm going to get to shortly, where the earliest magicians were believed to be magician kings. And then this will give rise to the religious structure of a priest king, and this will get rise to the modern day governments. Interesting about Fraser, he believed that if we study ancient societies, kings who became bad would lose their power, either the power of the gods or their magical abilities, and this would allow um, the right to regicide, killing of the king. All right, so what is magic? To get to magic, according to Fraser, we have certain laws we have to understand. These laws were things, according to Fraser, that our ancestors way, way back in the day came up with in their first attempts to understand the natural world and their place in it, as well as their bodies, their consciousness, how their society was structured. The law of sympathy, according to Fraser, all magic is based on this one law, the law of sympathy. And that has the assumption that things act on one another at a distance because of being linked together by invisible bonds. So everyone and everything is connected via these invisible bonds, these invisible strings. Well, a magician is someone who knows how to pull on those strings and manipulate those strings to different ends. So everything is connected. And with that, out of the law of sympathy, certain principles of magic are going to arise. Fraser talks a lot about this idea of likeness, things that are alike. And he will come up with certain rules. These are the key rules of the law of attraction, the law of sympathy. So, like attracts like produces like, and for the sake of healing and medicine, like cures like. Let's take a look at some examples. Well, a barren woman holding a wooden child to become fertile. It's a woman who's having trouble conceiving a child. Some traditions, the woman will put a doll, a wooden doll of a child on her lap. And the idea is that wooden doll will attract an actual child. In Native American traditions, we looked at some Native American healing stuff a few modules ago. Some Native American traditions will use thunderous sounds. For example, the rain dances will use their feet to make the sound of thunder. And the idea there is that's going to help produce rain because like is attracting like. So this thunderous sound is going to attract rain. And perhaps the most classic example is the voodoo doll. We're going to learn voodoo is actually quite far more complex than we than we might associate. The voodoo doll, where the likeness of a person is used to attack the person. So getting an image of a person to attack their eyes or their hearts. So this is one law. There is another important law for understanding magic and healing according to Fraser. This is called contagious magic. This is the law of contiguity, the law of contagion. So this law is based on the notion that whatever once formed part of an object continues to form part of it. So anything that comes from the body, whether it's hair or fingernails or eyelashes, whatever, will continue to be part of that person. So the classic example of this is actually hair and the use of hair in different magic spells. Hair is often used. I think we're seeing here an example of a hair being used in a love spell to get someone to fall in love with them. And let's kind of move forward here. And this is actually from my own research in the Himalaya Mountains of India. This is a practitioner of Buddhism who is using images of two images, one of them one male, one female, to attract evil spirits that might be afflicting and causing illnesses and disease and misfortune to actual people in this village. He's using likeness of real people to trap these evil spirits inside of here. All right, we're now moving on to, from magic, we go on to witchcraft. Maybe some of you have seen this. So I'm thinking about any TV shows that have witches in them. So witchcraft is, perhaps most of us who think of witchcraft, we think of the witch trials. Like, well, you had the Salem witch trials, which were between 1692 to 1693, but even more extensive. So in the Salem, there was 200 were accused of being witches, 19 executed. In Europe, however, a much longer history and often it's actually a far more brutal history as well. So between 1580 to 1630, an estimated 50,000 were accused witches were executed. So that's almost 1,000, mostly women who were accused of being witches and executed per year almost over the span of 50 years. All right. And the question I want to ask is, well, why do you think witch trials happen and could they still happen? And that's interesting. We might want to pause and think about that a little bit. Why would they happen and could they still happen today? All right. We read for this module, for this week, a reading on Wicca. This is a modern day tradition of witchcraft. These are practitioners trying to reclaim what it means to be a witch. All right, so Wicca was originated in the 1940s England as an attempt to recreate what was believed to be the ancient religious systems that were indigenous to Britain and Europe. And these had certain characteristics. These traditions, they venerated nature. And as we read, nature is very important for how healing takes place, to harmonize with nature, to use the objects of nature. This is very important for Wicca. Wiccans were in polytheism, so multiple gods and goddesses, and goddesses and goddess traditions in particular are very important in Wicca. And then the use of magic and ritual, often for healing purposes, but it can be used for a wide variety of other purposes. The fundamental code of Wicca is you can do whatever you want, but harm no one. All right, the modern day groups are called covens. A coven is a group of witches, and this group of witches is um, the group and social interaction is very key to how healing takes place in the Wiccan traditions. Healing is seen as something that is fundamental, even if somebody has their personal individual afflictions or diseases or mental disturbances, the healing of the individual comes together through the coming together of the group. All right. And we can ask another thing is why do you think someone might want to revive these past traditions? And this gets to some sociological explanations like sometimes there's a disenchantment with society. There's a sense that the modern world is something is missing from our lives. We're going to turn to the past. All right. Wicca and healing. And these are the kind of the key things to kind of know about the healing. Healing is always, like I said, communal. It's something that takes place in a community. Nature is very important. The use of natural objects from tree barks to stones, coming together in nature, often at specific times or seasons. A circle is the major geometric shape that is very significant in many traditions of magic. And so forming circles of chanting and often drum beats are accompanying the chanting, and then various rituals, various practices, uh, summoning the powers of nature to heal. All right, so that is one context that we're looking at witchcraft. Another important context for this class is, and this is the upcoming module, is one of the key groups that have been studied by anthropologists is a tribe in Africa called the Azande. I'm having you watch a really fascinating documentary as the basis of our discussion board. But what kind of some important things to know about this tribe in Africa and what is witchcraft for them? Witchcraft, as we'll see with the Azande, there's a belief that there are no accidents, there are no coincidences. If something bad happens, there's a reason something bad happened. And that something bad is often attributed to witchcraft. Well, who can be a witch and who does witchcraft? This is the next point I would like you to remember about the Azande is anyone can become a witch according to the Azande, and one can do witchcraft unknowingly and unconsciously. So if one is jealous or angry at someone, they might subconsciously perform witchcraft. So anybody can be a witch, and one does not have to intentionally be performing witchcraft to do witchcraft. And witchcraft is there's always a reason for bad things happening, and witchcraft is the typical answer. You're gonna see in the video how the Azandes diagnose witchcraft, identify witches, and use different practices and traditions to heal those who've been afflicted by witchcraft. And that'll be in this upcoming week's discussion board. All right, the other thing we're looking at is, well, voodoo. So this is a tradition that will mix various African cultures and traditions over time with Catholicism. Let's take a look a little bit here. So a little bit about voodoo. Voodoo means it's associated with spirit, and it is a religion that develops among diverse African slave groups. So these are groups in Africa that were slaves and then brought to Haiti by French colonists. There is a belief in voodoo about a high god called the Bondier. and various different classes of spirits that are under the Bondier. This is called the Loa. Souls can be captured and according to the voodoo tradition, and this could be the cause of a lot of suffering. And over time, these beliefs are going to become mixed with traditions of venerating Catholic saints. And this can be seen often in the voodoo altar, the imagery. Okay, so um, possession is very important. Individuals can be possessed by spirits, and through possession, one can bring about healing to others. Music, and we looked at a little bit about drumming a few weeks ago, I believe. Music is very important for bringing down the gods and calling the gods and entering what we learned about in shamanism, this altered state of consciousness. So the god will arrive and he or she will possess dancers, and it's often described as the spirit mounts the host. It it rides the host like riding a horse, and through the body of the host, the spirit can provide healing and miracles. All right, and music, dance, and physical offerings are very important. And the altars and material objects are used to interact with the Loa. All right, and going a little bit to the world of the saints and the Loa. So the slaves were baptized into Catholicism in Haiti, but would continue to practice their indigenous worship their indigenous spirits, often through the intermediary, the images of these Catholic saints. Okay. All right. Well, this concludes this lecture. Um, please stay well, stay safe, and stay tuned.